Hello everyone, so in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make this cool slide out menu using just HTML, CSS and a tiny little bit of jQuery. Okay, so here we are in Sublime with an almost blank canvas. So you can see what I've included here already is just some kind of default stuff. So I have the script for Font Awesome, which is kind of you get some icons and cursors and stuff in the form of a font, so you can style them as a font, which is pretty cool. I also have inside of the CSS folder, I have a default style sheet, so which is open just here, and I just put in some default parameters, you know, no margin, no padding or decoration on the text or styling on the lists. Also, I've included a font, you know, Open Sans, hosted by Google. A lot of people use it. It's a pretty cool font. And also I have jQuery, which is hosted by Google in this case as well. And I've just included from the JavaScript folder that I have open, which is just here, I have the menu.js, which is just how we're going to make the menu work. So at the moment it's completely blank, and that's because we're going to be going through it now. Okay, so you can see here that my menu is off screen by default, and the way to make it come onto the screen is to click this button. So obviously we need to give our users a way to do this. So in our HTML, we type I, which is normally italic or a different part of the text, this tag, but I'm going to use it to keep it different from P tags and things like that, which contain actual content. So we give it the class of FA bars, and then also we need to use FA, which gives it the default Font Awesome, you know, lets it know that it's a Font Awesome element. And then give it the class of toggle menu, which is just for our own style and, you know, purposes. And you'll see here what that looks like. So we get, you know, the 3 bars. Looks terrible at the moment though, so let's fix that. So inside of our CSS, you know, we'll paste our toggle menu, and then we need to give it some parameters to make it look a little bit better. So position it fixed, so that means it scrolls with the screen. So as user scrolls down, this will come with it. Padding, I normally do about 15 pixels on the top, 20 pixels to the right, 15 pixels on the top, 15 pixels on the bottom, and 15 pixels on the right. And then that'll just kind of bring it out a little bit like this, you know, so it's not touching the left and the top of the screen. Give it a margin top of 70 pixels. I did this because my wrapper on my website is positioned 70 from the top, so it kind of aligns with that. Also, we now have to give it a color of white, and because we're going to give it a background color now anyway, so it's cool. Cursor, option of pointer, so that it actually looks, well, we can't see it at the moment, but see, it changes to oh, I do something kind of a cursor. And then give it the background color, and then the color that I've used for my website is 648B79, and that looks like this. You know, so now we can see it. Kind of looks okay, you know, but you know, it'll get better. And then a few more options. So by default, I set the opacity to 0 so that, you know, it's hidden, you know, by default. But we won't do that in this case. We'll set the z-index of just a really high number so that it's always on the top of the screen. We need to give it a size, because it is a font, by the way. It's not an image, it's a font, so we can style it as a font, which is cool. So give it a font size of 2em, and that will look like this. So it's a bit bigger, like this, see? It's exactly the same, except for the opacity. So it's on screen now by default. The sidebar at this point will be hidden. So the next thing that we need to do is create the actual container for the menu. So let's save this, and then we go to here, close off the I tag, and that must have bothered so many people when I didn't do that before. I'm really sorry. Take the div with the class of sidebar menu, and then go down a couple of lines and close it off. And now we can set some styling for this. So we go inside of our CSS again, and now we can start to style, you know, our sidebar menu. So this is the best part. This is the, you know, the main container. So set it also position of fixed so that it scrolls with the screen. A width, I set mine to about 250 pixels, and that's kind of a good width for me. So we set the background color to red, which will look terrible, but you can see what it looks like. No, you can't, because I haven't defined the height yet. That's a good point. So get rid of this. Set margin left to 0, and you'll see why we're doing this in a minute. Even though that is a default parameter, you'll see why. And then overflow to hidden, so anything that exceeds the boundaries of the menu will be hidden. Height to 100% of the viewport height, not 100%, 100% of the absolute height of the document. You know, we can't see anything yet, but it is there. So now I just want to set the opacity on the, you know, the toggle menu button to 0 so that we can see it. So set the background to red, and this is what it looks like up to now. You know, it's kind of this. No, it's exactly the same width as this. See? So obviously we need to get rid of that. That's awful, the red. And then I set, give it a max height also of 100% of the viewport height. Don't let it get any bigger depending on how the user scales. And then give it a background color. And I know I've used hex up here. you know, hex code. But in this, we're going to use RGBA, which is just red, green, and blue with an alpha channel, so we can set the opacity without affecting all the things inside it. So I give it 17, 17, 17, so that's red, green, and blue, 17, 17, 17, and then 0.9 for the opacity. So you'll see it looks like this. See, so it's kind of, you know, 0.1% transparent, which is what we want for this. And then set the opacity to 0.9 as well, and that's just so that you can see through the actual content on there as well. So you can see the background image in this case. You see how we can see the background image here too? You know, I want to give it a transition so that it looks kind of cool when it slides in and out. So this is going to be how long you want the transition to take place. So when all of the elements in, you know, all of the, all of these parameters to be affected by the transition, or by the transition, and then 0.3 seconds is how long I want the transition to take between the menu being in and out. And then I'm going to set this to ease in out, which is the animation type, so it kind of gets slower towards the end and faster towards the beginning and things like that. So that's kind of cool as well. And now up to now it looks like this. You know, you can kind of see through it. If there was a background image here, you'd be able to see all like a tiny little bit of it, which is kind of cool. It's seamless, you don't really notice it, but it's cool. Inside here again, inside of our div, so the first piece of content is an I, again, with the class of FA for font awesome, and then FA times, which is a, you know, like a times icon. It's the cross, which we're going to be using as a close button. Why does my phone keep going off? I'm pretty sure I put it on silent. Okay, so now we've got to give the FA times some CSS parameters too. So we go here, type FA times, and that's how we control the CSS properties for the close button. And then also now give this a right of 10 pixels, which will make it, oh, not yet, it won't, but in a second when we position it properly. So right now, right 10, top 10 pixels also, opacity of 0.7, so it's, you know, we can give it a hover state so it goes to 1, so the user knows, oh, this does some stuff. And then also to enhance that, give it a cursor or pointer. Now the user will hover over it, see that it changes and go, okay, this does some stuff. Position it absolutely, and now you'll be able to see that, you know, it's positioned here. I don't know how well you can see that because the background color and the color of this kind of clash. So let's set it to white. So say color white, and then transition also. I can just copy that. It's exactly the same. Transition of 0, all the parameters 0.3 seconds and white, and then we can say FA times hover, which is the hover state, opacity 1. So now the user knows it definitely does some stuff. So see when you hover over it, it gets brighter. That's what we want. That's kind of cool, you know. So now I'm going to make this part here, you know, with my name in it. You can obviously put your name in it. It doesn't matter what it says inside it. So the first thing that we need to do now is say center. And this is a really outdated method, and I probably wouldn't recommend it, but for the sake of time, I'm going to do this now. And then say, create an A tag, href, to whatever you want it to link to. We can have it just link back to this document. So say index.php. And then outside this, now we just close this off. And then inside the A tag, we want to give a h1 tag with the class of boxed item. And this is really reusable because it's not saying like logo on home page or anything like that. So we can use it every single time we want a boxed item. After we've set the CSS parameters, of course. So now close this h1 tag off. And then I'm going to say mark, and then I'm going to say span because I want this part to be in bold. So I'm going to give a span with the class, of logo bold, and then close off the span. And then I'm going to say Hinton. Yeah, so now if we look at that, it'll look like really, I imagine really bad. Why did that take so long? It's going to look really bad. See, Times New Roman, got the link. It's awful. So let's fix that now with CSS. So we've called... what have we made so far? We've made boxed item, so we need to set some CSS parameters for that. So say boxed item, family, from family, we want it to be open sans, and now that'll make it look like this, you know, using a nice font. And then also let's set some more stuff. So font weight of 200 to make it thin, and then padding of 10 pixels top and bottom, 20 pixels left and right, and then display it as an inline block. Give it a border. You can set the border to whatever you want. This isn't important, but I'm going to say solid 2 pixels and white. So then if you look at it again, you know, it looks really bad at the moment, basically. So let's carry on giving this some style properties. Set the box sizing. A lot of people don't know about this parameter, but all it means is when it's set to border box, which means if you set the width to 500 pixels and then you give it a border of 2 pixels, instead of making the whole width 504 pixels, it'll now make it, okay, it wants a border, so let's take away some of the actual width and then put the border in. So I don't know if I explained that very well, but that's basically what it does. And then so let's set the font size to 22 pixels, the color to white, and text align to center, and then margin top of 70 pixels in total. And now let's look at that. See, it's getting close. And now all we need to do is set the span. So let's set the logo bold parameters. That's what we called it. To logo bold, to color, no, it's color. We've already set the color. Font weight 800. So now it'll look exactly the same. So you see, it's exactly the same. Now we need to make the little, we need to code the little part that goes underneath, which is just this part here. Professional web developer in my case, it can be whatever you want. Oh, sorry. So we go back to here, and then we're still inside the confines of the sidebar. We want to be, okay, so let's put it inside the center tag because we want it to be centered also. So let's say h2 with the class, not XL, with the class of logo title. That's what it is. And then call it, say, like professional web developer. So now we look at this again. It's not centered, it's too big. It's in Times New Roman. We need to style this. So we go into the CSS styles, and then what do we call this? We called it logo title. And now we need to set some parameters for this too. So we got the color to be white. Again, we want the font family to be Open Sans. And then the weight of it to be 200, and then size to be 12 pixels, align, text align, center, and then the padding, I think about 5 on the top and bottom, and then no padding to the left or right. So now you see exactly the same again. It looks a bit different because of the, background image I have here, but that's what it looks like up to now. So now we need to create the part where it actually has options for the users to click. So we're going to create a UL, which stands for unordered list, and give it the class of navigation selection, something like that. And then go down a couple of lines and close it off. And then in here, we need to create a list item. So li with the class of navigation item. Call it profile here. That's what mine's going to be called, but you obviously want this to be the first option on your menu. And then I'm just going to duplicate this a couple of times to, create some more. So profile, what did I have in mind? Education, work, experience, skills, and then just say interests. And then obviously if you look at it now, it'd be terrible. Times New Roman I think is the worst font in the world when used in this context. So now we obviously need to style the navigation selection, which is the menu that houses these options. Navigation selection. And then margin, 20 on the top and bottom to kind of separate it from the rest of the content, and then 0 on the left or right. Display it as a block. This then set the width to 200 pixels, and then a margin left of 25 pixels, and then that'll look like this. So they're kind of centered, with the end of this logo. And now we need to get some navigation item styles. So navigation item, and then we want the weight to be 200. I think that looks really nice for 200. Family again, Open Sans. Color, white. And then padding, 12 pixels on the top and bottom and 0. And up to now it looks like this. It's starting to get a little bit better, but it's not there yet. It's not even close. And then box sizing again, another thing that we use a lot, to border box. Font size, 14 pixels. Color to be, what should we say, D8. Yeah, D8. So D8, D8, D8. Border on the bottom. So border just bottom, solid, 1 pixel, and then also D8, D8, D8. D8. And then, what else do you want? The transition, again, of the same as one before. So let's copy down the transition. Where's the transition? There it is. The same transition. So it's good to keep a cool, transition, consistency on your website. And then obviously cursor pointer. And that'll look like this. It's like, yeah, it's cool. Looks like this, exactly the same as this. This has more options, but you know, for the sake of time, I left some of the options out. And now we're going to create another center tag. Again, really bad practice, but for the sake of time. And then say A with a href, the location. I'm just going to set it to the default right now, so it's not going to do anything. And then close it off. And then create a h1 with the class of boxed item. So see, we're using the same one as before. Only this time, we're also going to use a new one, a new class called boxed item smaller. You know, and then let's close it off. And then inside here, mine was sign up, but yours can be whatever you want. Mine says sign up, so I'm going to say FA user, which is going to give us a small user kind of icon. And then actually, I'm going to put, this is a good point actually. Let's get rid of all this up here. Put this underneath here. Close this off, and then put the sign up here. And you'll see why we're doing this again in a minute. I say that so often, but you will. And then, you know, that's kind of it now. So if we look at it again, it just looks really weird. Like kind of like an old Internet Explorer sort of MSN vibe. So what do we call it? We called it boxed item smaller. So now we need to set the you know, some parameters for boxed item smaller. So now set the font size to 12 pixels. Set the color to a really common color in this, which is D8. Width of 200 pixels. Copy and paste the transition again to the same, exactly the same transition properties as everything else. And then cursor, pointer, border width. In this case, we just want it to be 1 pixel. So 1 pixel. And then margins. So override some of the other parameters. So 0, 0, 20 pixels, 0. And now if we look at it now, absolutely the same. And now we need to give it some hover states. So copy boxed item smaller, go down a couple of lines, and then access its hover parameters, and then set the background color to white, which looks really cool. Color to 111, which also looks really cool. And then let's paste in the transition properties again. So if you look at this now, it looks normal, then you hover over it and everything kind of inverts and it looks really cool, I think. You know, you can set this to whatever you think, but I think that looks pretty cool. Same as here. But that's it now. That's it for the entire sidebar. You know, it looks a bit naked. We can add some more options if you want to, or fewer options. Everything's kind of relative. So if you get rid of interests, for example, the sign up button will just move up slightly. It's not, everything's not positioned absolutely, which is a mistake a lot of people make. So now all we need to do is create the functionality that makes it come in and out. So go to close menu. So our close menu.js here, sorry, menu.js, which is also linked here. And then we're going to be using jQuery. So use the jQuery selector on the document. So document ready. So when the document is loaded and ready, we have a function to run. And all this function is going to do is say, when the FA times button is clicked, .click then. So when the FA times button has been clicked, run another function that will then say, the sidebar menu dot add class. So give it a class, and when it's been clicked, add a class. So add hide menu, which is a thing we're going to make in a second. So hide menu, but also go to the toggle menu element and click, and also add the class of opacity 1, which can also be done with styling inside of jQuery, but I like to do this because it's easier to make it animate. So that's what happens when it's when the close button is clicked, it goes away. But now obviously when it's gone away, we need a way to get it back. So we're going to say toggle menu when the toggle menu is being clicked, and then just reverse. So remove the class from sidebar menu and remove the class from toggle menu. Sorry, did you ever do that thing where you say something out loud and you type it by accident? Remove the class opacity 1, so a little, you know, bring it back. So nothing happens because we haven't created the class. So we go back into here. So what was the names of the class we defined here? So we hide menu. So now we need to create this class. So dot hide menu. So this is the class. So margin left, this is how we're going to make it come in and out. So we're going to say margin left minus 200 pixels. It's 250 pixels because that's how wide our sidebar menu is. So of course it is .fa times, so that's because it's a class. And now if we go back, it'll close it. So that's exactly what we want. But now there's no way of getting it back. You can see here that it exists, the button to bring it back, and it does its, what it's told, but we need to obviously allow the user to see it. So see, we haven't created that anywhere here yet. So now say opacity 1, and then set the opacity to 1 again. And then you'll see here when we come back and we close it, it comes back, but it kind of just appears, and we don't want that. Oh, open uTorrent, didn't come up, it's cool. So now we need to set the transition to all of the properties, 0.3 seconds, and then easing out. And now you'll see that when we click this, it fades in, and when we click this, it goes away. That's exactly what we want. So I hope this video has been helpful. It might have been a little bit long and wordy and stuttery, and that's because I'm not really used to making these kind of videos yet. I'm not really used to talking to myself in this context. No, I'm kidding. I'm not used to talking to myself. So it's getting a little bit easier for me in making these tutorials, but I hope that you enjoy them and you learn some stuff from them. The code files for this exact project is going to be in the description anyway, so you can download them, play around, even if I didn't make too much sense, which I'm really apologetic for if I didn't. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you back here on this channel again for the next one.